to show you good day everyone. I'm going to show you a tutorial on how to do if-then statements and absolute cell references. First of all, if-then statements are used to test condition of a cell. And if the answer to the condition is yes, you're going to do one thing. If the answer to the condition is no, you're going to do something else. Now you'll see what I mean in just a second. Here I have customers and I have how much they've purchased, and this is through a mail order catalog. Now, if people purchase $200 or more, as shown in this red statement right here, if they purchase $200 or more, then the shipping charges are going to be free. That's the second part here. If the answer to that question is yes, that they purchased $200 or more, then the shipping is free. Now, if they did not purchase $200 or more, then we're going to charge them 10% of the amount of the purchase. So, I've shown you down below here the actual formula as it looks completed. Let's take it one step at a time. To calculate the shipping charges, we're going to start off with a formula. All formulas begin with an equal sign. So I press equal. And we are going to do an if test. So I'll type IF and put a left parenthesis. Now, this is an if statement. Well, if what? If the amount of the purchase as shown in B2 is, so I'm going to put B2 here, if what is shown in B2 is greater than or equal to $200, comma, that's the first piece of the formula, shown in three parts below, red, green, and blue. The red part of the formula is the test of a condition. I want to see if what's in cell B2 is greater than or equal to 200. Now, if the answer is yes, and in this case the answer will be yes, we're going to charge 0 shipping charges. So I'll press 0 for the shipping charges. Now I'll put a comma. The third part of the formula is, what are you going to do if the answer to the question was false? In other words, what if they did not purchase $200 or more? Well, in that case, as shown in the blue down below, we're going to charge them 10% of the amount of their purchase. So what we'll do is take the amount of the purchase, which is B2, and multiply that times 10%. Now, I'm going to click enter the formula. Now notice there's no shipping charge, and that's correct. It should be no shipping charge. Let me copy the formula down and show you what happens when we copy it down. There we go. Now if you look at the test condition, it says if the amount of the purchase is $200 or more. If the answer is yes, then there's 0 shipping charges. Otherwise, the shipping charges is 10% of the amount purchased. So let's take a look at what we've got here. In the first one, B2, was that greater than or equal to $200? Yes. So there's 0 shipping charges. This one here, is B2 greater than or equal to 200? No, it is not. Therefore, they pay the 10% times B2. The next one is $200. Oops, let's go to this next one here. Is this next one here, if Mrs. Jones, is her amount of purchase greater than or equal to $200? The answer is yes, it is. It is equal to $200. So in this case, it matches up. It says is it 200 or more? Yeah, it's exactly 200, but it's still in the test area. So there is no shipping charge. What about Mrs. Kalser here? She had $200.01. Is that greater than or equal to 200? Yes, it is. So therefore, there is 0 charge. And this is the formula, the correct answer that would go in the answer below here, the big one in red, green, and blue. That formula would go in D2 for the first customer, and then you copy it down for the rest. And you can see that it works. Let's go now, and let's go to a different section. I've got to move this little thing out of the way here. Let me put this over here for a minute. Okay, now let's go to another problem, and if then, same thing. tab 2. Okay, in this case, let's click in D2. I want to calculate the shipping charges under a different set of conditions. In this case, I've shown you below, if the amount of the purchase is over 200. Notice this when I said specifically it's got to be over 200. Over 200. Not exactly 200, but it's got to be over 200. If that is true, then the shipping charge in this case will be 5% of the amount of the purchase. Notice what it says. It says then the shipping is 5% of the amount of the purchase. That's critical, the amount of the purchase. And if it was not over $200, then the shipping is 10% of the amount of the purchase. Okay, so we're going to have two different things here. If they buy over $200 worth of merchandise, we're only going to charge them 5% shipping charge. Otherwise, we're going to charge them 10%. The purpose of that is it encourages them to buy more merchandise. So let's go to cell D2 and let's calculate out the shipping charges. In this case, the shipping charges, we'll put it in D2, then copy it down for everyone else. All right, all formulas start with an equal sign, so we'll press equal. And this is an if statement, an if test. So I type IF and put a left parenthesis. Now, it says if the amount of the purchase is over 200. So I'm going to test cell B2. So I'll type B2. If B2 is greater than $200, I'll put a comma. Notice I'm only testing to see if it's greater than 200, not equal to 200 or more than, but specifically it's got to be over 200. All right, that's my test, and I have a comma. The next part of the formula is calculate out the shipping. The shipping in that case would be 5% of the amount purchased. So I type 5% times the amount of the purchase, which is in cell B2. So it's 5% times B2. Now I'll put a comma. Now, they get 5% shipping charge if they bought over $200 worth. But if they didn't buy over $200 worth of merchandise, then they're going to have to pay the 10% of the amount purchased. So after the comma, we put the false value, which would be they will pay 10% times the amount of the purchase, which is in B2, and end with the right parenthesis. Now, our formula is, again, very simple. It's in 3 pieces. The first part tests a condition. We want to see if B2 is greater than 200. This B2, is that greater than 200? If the answer is yes, we're going to charge them 5% of what they bought. If the answer is no, they didn't purchase more than 200, then we are going to charge them 10% of what they bought. Okay? So it encourages people to buy more. So let's click, check, and see what our answer is. And there is a shipping charge greater than $200, 5%. Okay. Now, everybody's got shipping charges in this case. Remember, nobody got free. Now, let's take and see if the test works. We want to see if what's in B2 is greater than 200. Is it greater than 200? Yes, it is. As you can see, because they got 5% shipping charges. They only had to pay 5% of the shipping charge. That's $12.50. The next one, this one here, is this one greater? Is the purchase over 200? Well, clearly $150 is not over $200. So he has to pay 10% if we purchase. 10% of 150 is 15. Makes sense. Now let's go to the next one. This Mrs. Jones, did she purchase over 200? No, she did not. She purchased exactly 200. And the test was if the amount of the purchase is greater than 200. And no, it wasn't greater than 200. It was exactly 200. So in that case, she winds up having to pay the 10%. 10% of $200 is $20. Now let's take Mrs. Carlson. She bought $200.01 worth of merchandise. Was that over 200? Yes, it was. And since it was over $200, even though it was only a penny over, it was over 200, so she got to have a 5% shipping charge. And 5% of $200 is 10. So you can see that that works. I'll do one more very quickly. Click on this one. This one is a little trickier, and you might come up against these things in real life, let me tell you. This one here, it's tricky, but I'm going to show it to you anyway. In this one here, in D4, I'm supposed to calculate out the shipping charges. And here's the if-then statement. You can read it. It says, if the amount of your purchase is $400 or more, that's the test. We want to see if the amount of the purchase is $400 or more. If the answer is yes, then the shipping will be 5.5% of your average purchase. Now here's where I was tricky. If the answer is no, then you'll be charged 10% shipping charge based on the amount of your purchase. Notice I'm tricking you. I'm using two different things. The amount of your purchase in one condition and the average purchase is in the other. So let's watch and see how that should be done properly. In D4, I'm going to press equal to tell it it's a formula. And it says, it's going to be an if test, so I type IF and put a left parenthesis. Now I want to test. It says, is the amount of your purchase $400 or more? So I'm going to click on the amount of the purchase, which is B4. I could have typed it, but I clicked on it. So is B4 400 or more? So I'm going to say, is B4 greater than or equal to 400? You got to read how the test was asked. Is it greater than 400? So put a comma. So if B4 was greater than 400, comma. Now, if the answer to that is yes, what is the shipping charge? And you can see down below it says, if yes, then the shipping charge will be 5.5% of your average purchase. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to type 5.5% of the average purchase. So that will be 5.5% times the average purchase, which is in cell C4. So I'll type C4. All right, now I'll put a comma to separate it. Now, if the answer to that was not true, then your shipping charges will be, according to the green box, it will be 10% of the shipping charges based on the amount of your purchase. So, in that case, I will take 10%, and multiply it times the amount of your purchase. Now notice in this case, the amount of your purchase is cell B4. So I'm going to type B4 and end with the right parenthesis. Now, so in this case, as you can see, my test was if B4 is greater than or equal to $400, that was the test. Then I put a comma. And you can see it down below. If B4 is greater than or equals 400, then it's C4 times 5%. You know, I reversed it. It's the same thing. You know, it's the exact same thing. C4 times 5.54% or reverse. And otherwise, if it is not true, then it's B4 times 10%. So those are two different conditions I checked. That's a little tricky, but I'll click the green checkbox, and I get $39.50 for shipping charges. I drag it down and copy, and there it is. You can see my answers match the answers that I've given you here. Okay, and I'll probably make this available for you. You can play around with it if you want to. But for now, let's just go on to the last thing I want to show you, which is how to do an absolute cell reference. Okay, here we are. Here's a building that was built out of nails, wood, and shingles, and the total amount is $200. I want to know what percent nails is of the total. And you can say, well, that's easy. I'll go equal, and it's the amount of the nails divided by the total. Yes, that's 13%. And okay, that's true. That's correct. And fine, let's copy the answer down. You don't want to type it over and over and over and over again. You want to type it once. Now let's copy it down. Whoa, that doesn't work. Let's see why it doesn't. Okay, when I display the formula, you'll see when I typed in B6 divided by B10, that worked because that was the first number. Now, when you copy down, it adds 1 to the left side of the formula. So B6 became B7, B8, B9, B10. And that's fine because there is a B6, B7, B8, B9, B10. But when you copy it down, it also adds one to the right side of the formula. It went from B10 to B11, B12, B13, and B14. Now wait a minute. If you look here, there's a B10, yeah, but there is no B11, B12, B13, or B14. So let's bring that back the way it was, okay, and delete these things out. What we're going to do this time is we're going to use an absolute cell reference. So you press equal to tell it it's a formula, and you want to take nails and you want to divide it by the total. Now that is correct. It will give you the right answer. Now, problem here is that we need to make cell B10 to be absolute. In other words, we want B6 absolutely divided by B10, B7 absolutely divided by B10, B8 divided by B10, 9 by B10. And in order to lock that B10 in place, we are going to have to make that an absolute cell reference. Now you can do that by putting a $ in front of the B10 and a $ after the B10. There we are. Now it's going to divide B6 by B10 and still give you the right answer. But look, when I copy it down, it works to the rest. And here's why it works. Because it took B6 and divided it by B10. It took B7 divided it by B10, B8 divided by B10, B9 divided by B10, and B10 divided by B10. Now, that's called an absolute cell reference. The cell is absolutely locked in place. Let's do it one last time. I'll delete out the answers and show you once again. All right. In order to find out the percent each item is of the total in a way that we can copy it down, you do this. Press equal to tell it's a formula. Click on the first item divided by the total. Now all of the individual items have to be divided by the total, so the B10 is an absolute cell reference. You should be able to have B10 highlighted. Hold on a second, let me do that again. Delete. Okay, let's go equal B6 divided by B10. Now, you're supposed to be able to press your F4 key down, and it should automatically turn it into an absolute cell reference. See, it did. Remember a minute ago I typed in the $ before and after it, but if you have that cell highlighted and you click on the F4 key, it will automatically put the $ in before and after. Okay, let's enter the formula, and let's copy that down, and there you go. That's how it works. Okay, thank you. Good luck.